everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
And it is time to finally talk about the first Spider-Man Homecoming trailer. Dan, do you want to talk about Spider-Man today?
No.
No?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay. That's not a question you ever asked Dan. Yeah, hey, Dan, you want to talk about Spider-Man? It's like, hey, Cap, you want to talk about Star Trek?
Or Batman, in your case.
Or Batman,
you love
yeah.
talking about Batman.
That too. So anyway, today we're going to finally tackle, or I say finally, it just came out yesterday, but I feel like I've been waiting to see stuff for this movie. I've been really excited about it. And
me too.
We found out the day before we got to see the trailer that he was getting the armpit webbing. And I was immediately like, yes, the armpit, because that's one of the big things that Dan and I have been hoping he would get and kind of didn't expect, and there it was. And it's exactly what I would have done with it. It looks really cool.
Yeah, same. I'm really the entire tone and direction they're going with this seems to be a greatest hits of Ultimate and the early Amazing Lee Ditko days, and kind of meshing them together. You have the iconic, stuff from the early Lee days, like the spider signal we saw at the end of Civil War, the armpit webbing, and we've got some of the, scenes taken directly from those comics, like the shot at the end of the trailer is straight out of the Master Planner storyline from the comics, where Spider-Man's got all the watery debris on top of him. It's a little bit different in the trailer. He's holding a boat together with webbing, but it's obviously a homage to that stuff, because you get the water pouring all over him and stuff. And they homage that a little bit in Spider-Man 2 when he's got the.
I was gonna say, I feel like
dropped on him there.
I was gonna say that reminded me of other things I've seen him do on screen before. It reminded me of anything in the comics, but if that's an homage in the first place, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's always what they're referencing whenever Spider-Man's got heavy stuff on top of him and they've got him posed like that. So yeah, they there was a lot of cool stuff like that. And then the first scene with the Avengers with the masks on at the beginning of the trailer is straight out of the first arc of Ultimate, and obviously they're doing some stuff from Spectacular. Liz Allen is straight up that version from the Spectacular cartoon. And as well, we've got Ned Leeds, who is a complete reinvention of that character. He's just like Gank from the Ultimate comics, the Miles Morales run. And he's even got the obsession with Legos, and they're roommates and stuff. So yeah, it's a really good combination of a lot of the great Spider-Man things from past and more recent stuff, which made me really happy. I really like that about it. It's really cool.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a love letter to all of that lore. Because I was picking up on a lot of stuff from all kinds of different Spider-Man properties, and because you initially just mentioned Ultimate and just the original Stan Lee stuff, I was surprised to see a character that looks and acts like Gank. I think that is a bizarre choice. I don't know why we didn't just make that Gank. I mean, we'll see what they do with it. It's so weird that is Ned Leeds. Just make it Gank, and because I think that it would have been really easy to make that your to bring in Miles Morales if you had wanted to, where he could meet him somewhere else and they could be friends, and then he introduces the two to each other. Maybe that would be too convenient. I don't know, but.
The only possible reason I could see using Ned Leeds would be if they do the Ultimate version of the Hobgoblin, because in the comics, Harry Osborn is really young and he becomes a Hobgoblin in that, so maybe eventually they'll make a teenage goblin that Ned Leeds will become in the future or something. Because for those who don't know, in the comics, Ned Leeds is... when he's introduced, he's sort of a romantic competition for Peter, for Betty. They eventually get together, Betty and Ned, after Peter breaks it off with Betty. And he was supposed to be the Hobgoblin in the comics when Peter David and Roger Stern were writing those books. And there was an editorial kerfuffle, and eventually they had to create a whole new character, Roderick Kingsley, to reveal who Hobgoblin was. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the movies they just use Ned Leeds and make him the Hobgoblin when they introduce him. I think that would be really cool, because I think they're going to try and avoid using a lot of the same villains we've seen multiple times on screen before, because we've got the Vulture in here, but I think moving forward, even in future installments in this series, Marvel's going to try to, I think, distinguish this from the past Sony stuff, because we've seen Green Goblin twice already. I mean, as much as I love that character, I think people might get a little sick of it and have the same thing they did that some people did with Amazing, where it's it's just the same story over again, You
got to be careful with that, of course. On the other hand, how disappointing would it be to have a Spider-Man mythology without Norman Osborn?
Agreed, yeah. I really want to see that eventually, but I'm just saying, initially, I think
definitely,
kind of cool.
Initially. What I'm still speculating, and I feel like maybe I've said this someplace before, is I'm expecting some of maybe specifically those characters, but some of Spider-Man's villains to crop up in other things before they crop up in Spider-Man. I think that's how you avoid that, and that was their approach with introducing Spider-Man in the first place. Is let's put him someplace else in the first place, and then kind of ease people into the idea of, okay, it's this character you've seen a couple of versions of. One was maybe a little bit more popular than the other one, but we're rebooting again, and it's inside of a thing that is tested and proven, and then maybe people won't be so suspicious of it like they were when Sony and Marvel first got in bed with each other. I kind of could see them putting Norman Osborn in somebody else's movie first.
I think so too. I think you're really onto something there, especially with Osborn, because we have Tony Stark in this, and Osborn has been an Iron Man villain before. In Fraction's run, he was, of course, the Iron Patriot. So, and that story is actually really good, and there's some parallels between those two characters. So, if Downey gets another shot at an Iron Man movie, maybe Osborn could be the villain. That would be like the best thing ever if we use him in an Iron Man movie, because that would make me infinitely more interested in whatever Iron Man 4 is if they ever do that.
If they ever do
Iron
that.
Man's not like my favorite character or anything, but if you make Norman Osborn the villain, I'll be there day one, midnight opening, you know?
Well, and something else you got to keep in mind is that we only saw the Vulture in this trailer. I don't think anybody else pops up. Unless there's a glimpse of Shocker and I missed it.
There wasn't a glimpse of Shocker that I saw. We do know he's going to be in the movie. And
I've seen set photos. I know what he looks like.
Yeah, and there's another guy who's been cast as an antagonist in the movie, but we don't really know who he is yet.
Yeah, that's the reason I brought that up. Is that we know that there's at least 3, if not 4 or 5 or 6 villains in this movie somewhere. There's been a lot of talk of like multiple villains, so they're not skimping out on putting a bunch of people up front, and they're probably all villains that haven't been put at least on live action big screen before. So I also wonder if that might not be part of the strategy, where it's like up front they're saying, look, we're using new characters, so that then maybe in sequels they can get away with reinventing characters we've seen before.
I think what they're going to do, because you just made me think of this, we do know confirmed as well that the Tinkerer is in the movie, and we see that big tech gun being used in the bank robbery, and then the Vulture uses it when the boat like kind of snaps in half. So I would imagine the Tinkerer is going to be involved.
That might be kind of a MacGuffin in the film. I didn't realize that was in that scene too. I didn't notice it.
Yeah, throughout the trailer, that gun that shoots purple stuff is being used by all the bank robbers and then the villains. So I would imagine that some of those bank robbers, I would imagine, are probably future Spider-Man villains, and the Tinkerer will outfit them. I would imagine they're probably going to do something like what Spectacular did with the Enforcers, where they were just kind of like thugs with weird gimmicks before they got the tech, and they changed into other characters. Like a Montana with the guy with the lasso eventually became the Shocker in the cartoon, which I thought was a really cool way to combine those characters, because they're just kind of like, they're both kind of like thug characters anyway. It's not like they were like Norman Osborn, like deep, really important characters to the mythology. So I'm not married to Herman Schultz necessarily being the Shocker or anyone really all that important.
Yeah, me neither. And that's the nice thing about a lot of Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, and you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, but that so many of them are just thuggish brutes in the first place, and then they can become interesting after the idea is they were nobodies, and now they theoretically maybe became somebody's, or maybe they didn't, but it's so easy to reinvent that in 100 different ways. I think Spider-Man's villains are really malleable, many of them, at least the not super genius ones.
I think so too. Like even Dr. Octopus.
Maybe even some of the super geniuses.
Yeah, who was like the second archenemy of Spider-Man. He underwent a sort of complete reinvention in the second Raimi movie, and that's kind of the take that stuck with that character, and they've even incorporated it into the comics. So I'm excited to see what they do with the Vulture in this, especially. I really like what Keaton seems to be doing with it. From the little we see of him, like giving dialogue in the trailer, he looks just kind of like a disheveled regular guy, and that I think is a good. Because a lot of Spider-Man's villains are just kind of like regular people in the same way that Spider-Man is, that don't use their power responsibly. And I do like that Vulture's wings look like they're using the same technology as Falcon's, which a lot of people were speculating like maybe the tech will be connected. It would be really cool if the Tinkerer is the guy that invented both Falcon and Vulture's tech, and he somehow has worked with both of them or worked for the government or SHIELD or something. It's going to be really interesting to see like if they are at all connected. I would imagine they are.
Yeah.
I would imagine they're going to connect this as much as they possibly can to the Avengers canon, even in like tangential ways like that, to let people know like no, this is like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If the Tony Stark stuff didn't tip you off already, right?
Well, I thought it was really smart to open that trailer the way it did, and let's get into just how effective this was as a trailer, because I like to look at the art of trailer making some when we look at these. It opens with that bank robbery, and it immediately puts up front, yes, it's in that world, and we know that, of course, if you've seen Civil War, but just like acknowledging, yes, Avengers, and then pretty quickly acknowledging, yes, Tony Stark. But it's also, once again, a totally different tone from anything we've seen in these movies before, because high school superhero, even though it's a staple in the comics, is not a thing we've gotten to yet. And one of the things I really latched onto with the conversation that Tony Stark and Peter Parker have in the car, and then his Tony talking throughout the trailer, which is probably not that same conversation, is the idea that not just is Peter Parker in over his head, but that as but that he might be irrelevant. Like it's a pre-established Marvel universe that has already been going on for almost a decade. That we've already had all these, we already have all these superheroes all over New York. It's already that status quo. I really like that they're just owning that and steering into that skid, because of how strange that feels as a Marvel fan in the first place, that Spider-Man wouldn't be one of your original superheroes. In this, it's, and I like this a lot, it's Peter Parker both has some delusions of grandeur, certainly, and also that sense of responsibility that I have these powers and I have to do something about things that happen that are in my purview and nobody else is around, and yet he's in a world filled with all these other people that not only are equipped to do some of the same things that he is, but are also older and more mature and experienced and all of that, and that's it looks like that's going to be the main crux of the of the at least internal conflict for Peter Parker. I like that a lot. What is high school Peter Parker in a world that already has 100 superheroes? That's great.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I latched onto that line as well. You were talking about in the conversation where Tony says, like, don't worry about the flying monster guy. There's people to take care of these sorts of things.
Yeah, and you're not ready.
Interesting.
But he's also entertaining the notion of Spider-Man eventually becoming an Avenger, which I like. I mean, I don't generally like Spider-Man as an Avenger, but I just mean that, like, he's thinking that. He's not immediately saying, no, kid, you can't cut the mustard. He went to him in the first place and brought him into a big giant fight that he wasn't ready for. So he can't do that, and I like that he's not doing that.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how they deal with him being on the Avengers and stuff. I mean, just from a business standpoint, Marvel is probably going to want to put Spider-Man on the Avengers eventually, because Spider-Man being in an Avengers movie is going to put butts in the seats for people. But I kind of hope that this first movie is a loose adaptation of one of the early Amazing issues, where the Avengers give Spider-Man a task to join the Avengers and he doesn't complete it. In the issue, it's the Hulk is on the loose, and the Avengers are like, Spider-Man, go wrangle the Hulk and bring him back here, and we'll let you join the team. And obviously he doesn't succeed because the Hulk is impossible to catch. It's kind of a cruel challenge on the Avengers part in the issue. When you go back and look at it, it's kind of funny. But I kind of hope that the movie is just kind of about Spider-Man, just because failure is the key to success in a lot of ways, because you have to fail in order to learn things. And I hope that, like, Spider-Man fails at least joining the Avengers. Like, he may take down Vulture, but the cost will be very high. And I also like that we're starting with Liz Allen as the love interest, because obviously, like, she's not a long-term girlfriend for Peter Parker. I kind of hope he doesn't get the girl at the end either. Like, the paralleling his personal life and the superhero stuff is always what I've loved about this character. And if they do that in both ways, like the personal stuff with his relationship, he doesn't get the girl and he doesn't get to join the Avengers. I know that's kind of like atypical for a superhero movie, but I think that's so Spider-Man at the same time.
That's how that ought to play out, potentially. Now, I could also see I could also see the movie getting to one of those two things in an organic way, and mine not leaving the theater going, oh well, it shouldn't win anything. You know, like it might be fine, but my first instinct is the same thing that yours is, which is, now that movie should end with his. Honestly, it should end with his not even sure he should keep the suit on, probably. Let's get that out of the way. Let's do that once and never again.
Put it in the trash can at the very end of the movie.
Maybe not that! I mean, let's not, they're probably not going to want to end this on a huge downer, because, I mean, this is a tonal line to walk, right? It's kind of a tightrope, because, being a Spider-Man story, it's got to be fun and quippy, which this clearly is, and it's all, looks in the trailer, but it's also got to be heavy enough that he's that he's dealing with the difficulty of keeping his personal life intact, and also being a superhero, and whether or not he should even be there. This is clearly the Spider-Man that creates a lot of his own villains. I really like the awesome. One thing you get from Michael Keaton is leave me alone and nothing will happen to you. Mm-hmm. Stay out of my way or I will kill everyone that you care about. And obviously the dilemma is, if I don't, then something worse will happen and it will be my fault, because that's what happened to Uncle Ben. But then the question is, if you're working with Tony Stark and there's all these other superheroes, how true will that end up being? So I think he gets in and over his head, and I think he probably he probably jumps into a thing that he didn't even necessarily have to jump into. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree, and I like that the trailer right after that Michael Keaton line, or it's either right before or right after, where he's talking about you don't really need to be involved in this conflict, leave me alone, and I'll leave your loved ones alone. Right before that or after that is him talking on the phone with Liz Allen, and she's like, Peter, what's going on with you? And he's like, I'm really swamped. It's very clear the trailer is demonstrating that this superhero thing is negatively affecting both aspects of his life, just like it is in the comics. Right. He isn't able to do this balancing act well because it's impossible. And I like that they're lashing onto that realistic aspect of the interpersonal relationships, because that's all what Spider-Man stories are about, and that's what the focus of the movie needs to be. And I like that as well. A great portion of the trailer is actually in the high school. We get to see how him and Ned are really social outcasts. They
just call him Gang. He's not Ned Leeds, he's Gang. Just call him Gang.
Yeah.
Gang Leeds!
The only other character that seems like a social outcast, even more so than them, weirdly enough, was Zendaya's character, who's playing a character named Michelle. A lot of people thought she was going to play Mary Jane, but she's kind of like a goth chick or a punk chick or something like that in this. I didn't even recognize her.
I didn't even notice her. I was looking for her. I didn't even see her. She's in there? Okay.
Yeah, she's the character that says, too late, you guys are losers, and Peter goes like this to her.
Wait, that's who that is? She's unrecognizable. Not that I have really seen her in anything. I've just looked at pictures because people thought she was going to be Mary Jane, but, okay.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
Her. There's a lot of little cool things in the high school stuff. I didn't notice it upon first glance because I was, concentrating on the dialogue and, the characters that the trailer wants you to focus on. But when Liz Allen is kind of walking by in slow motion and they're staring at her, there's a really looking nerdy blonde girl with a black headband walking next to Liz Allen. I'm like, is that Gwen Stacy? Because she looks exactly like her. Mm-hmm. And the kind of nerdy version of Gwen Stacy is the one they have in the... Gwen Stacy's always been a smart girl that's interested in science, but not as socially awkward as the one in Spectacular is, and she looks like kind of a mousy little girl in a cute way. So
no, in the Amazing movies, if she had lived, she would have run for and probably successfully become president of the United States.
Yeah, exactly. Emma Stone's character is much more like the 616 version, in that she's very driven and outspoken, and she's the one of the two of them that initiates the relationship. Yeah. The one in Spectacular isn't like that at all. She kind of admires Peter from afar and is really shy. Yeah. And I always liked that version of her a lot. Not more so, just the different take on it I think is interesting. So I wouldn't be surprised, me and you had a conversation about this when the trailer dropped, or in the morning afterwards when we had saw it. I wouldn't be surprised, and you said this as well, if they seed things for the mythology and like the girlfriends all in this movie. Like you see a bunch of them as little Easter eggs and cameos and stuff for the fans. That'd be really, really awesome.
I think if that's who that is, what you saw of her might be the only thing you see of her in the whole movie.
Yeah, I agree.
She could be in the background.
She might not even have a speaking part.
That doesn't even have to be the actress that ends up playing her. I mean, it would be so easy to just have somebody in the background and say retroactively that's who that was. We actually cast her later. Or maybe they've got the forethought where they actually cast her and nobody knows it. You know, I mean that'd be really cool. I just thought of this, Dan. Paralleling Tony Stark and Peter Parker in this world specifically is going to be really interesting because Tony Stark in his first movie couldn't keep his two lives separate to the point where at the end he threw his hands in the air and said, "Screw it, I'm Iron Man." And I like the idea of his and some of it is just his arrogance and his self-aggrandizing and his liking the attention he gets being both the Playboy and Iron Man. But I like the idea that he just says, "Screw it, I'm gonna be both publicly." And Peter Parker actually has the harder road to walk because I think they're gonna play it as high school is harder than running a multi-billion-dollar company.
Well, and that's one of the things I liked about that conversation they have in the car, where he's
when he says high school
don't
sucks.
do anything I would do and don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
The middle line that you have to walk between those two paths.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what Peter has to do.
Yeah.
But he just says it in that kind of colloquial, arrogant Tony Stark way, you know?
Yeah.
It's great.
Tony Stark as the mentor didn't immediately make sense to me, and now, after Civil War, I'm watching this, I'm like, oh yes, of course. It's just great now.
We had talked about this movie, speculating about it when we had initially heard that Tony Stark was going to be in the movie, and I'm with you. I wasn't necessarily excited.
We weren't on board with it right away.
Yeah, but now seeing it, I'm actually kind of excited about it, and I think we may have seen in the trailer most of what Tony's role is going to be in the movie. I don't expect him to be intimately involved in every action scene of the movie. I don't expect him to have 30, 35, 40 minutes of screen time.
Me neither, but I'll say this. I didn't see it as a given that he would be in a suit.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because they do show that scene at the very end of the trailer where they're kind of going around the city together, which is cool.
I don't expect him to be in more than one action scene, and I don't expect that to be the climax of the film.
I wouldn't be surprised
necessarily
if that scene of them flying around together is at the very beginning of the movie. I wouldn't be surprised if they opened with that.
Could be. I didn't think of that. Could be just a training exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we know for sure if there's any other Avenger cameos or anything? Has anything been announced of somebody else pops in? Because if Falcon's not in this movie, I'll be a little surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either, especially since they did have that memorable moment with him and Bucky fighting Spider-Man in Civil War.
Well, I didn't even think of that, but it's two things. First of all, obviously the Vulture wings, but secondly, these movies cannot get away from Falcon. Since he's been there, he's been in every movie but one.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about it that way, but you're right.
He's been in everything but Guardians since now Doctor Strange. But up until Doctor Strange, he was introduced in Winter Soldier and as a sidekick character, and then we cannot stop. I think the people working on these movies like that character and that actor now as much as I do. I think instantly they were like, oh, he's just the best thing ever. And they can't stop putting him in everything and giving him quite a bit of screen time.
Well, I'm with you. I can't disagree with him.
I love him.
That guy. He's awesome. Yeah.
Well, and I kind of want a Spider-Man Falcon team up because they're both quippy characters. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see them fight together. I think Spider-Man teaming up with different characters for just a scene or two should be a staple of his movies. I think people should come
that would be cool.
in and out of them, and I want that certainly more than I would want to see him on an Avengers team.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely.
I'm also open to that idea in a way I may not have been as much early on, just because this Tony Stark mentor thing I'm so on board with now. I'm having a hard time not just feeling not that I have the keys. I was going to say not just feeling giving them the keys and going, do whatever. You guys clearly know what you're doing.
Yeah, and the way Tony Stark is playing into the movie, obviously they're very different characters, but The Tony Stark mentor thing is kind of like a replacement for Nick Fury's role in the early.
I was going to
comics.
say that, and I'm really glad that, like, isn't this kind of fortuitous? Maybe in a way that it took this long before they were able to put Spider-Man in their movies. I'm glad that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s no longer an important entity anymore, because if this had happened early on, it would have been Nick Fury, and it would have been S.H.I.E.L.D., and I don't know what it is about that. Maybe I just saw it so many times I got tired of it. I am tired of Nick Fury taking Peter Parker under his wing. I did not want to see that in those movies. And I think maybe part of that is because we already saw it with Iron Man. I mean, like, he not that he mentors him exactly, but there's already, Nick Fury coming in and kind of having to, like, put Tony in his place a little bit and get him to, be more mature and realize that there's more at stake than just himself and be a team player and all of that. I don't need that again.
Yeah, and you got the same thing with Steve Rogers. It's just kind of the opposite thing in Winter Soldier, where he tries to have Steve adjust to the modern world, but Steve won't have it.
Precisely.
And doesn't follow Nick Fury's guidance in the way that Tony Stark does follow his guidance and follows his advice.
Well, and then this is about Peter Parker figuring out how to be a hero in a world of heroes, with some of them that have already kind of figured out how to do that, as opposed to being taken in by a spy agency. I never liked that.
Yeah, it's a very different idea, which is cool.
It's okay it's okay in the Ultimate Comics, but like I was thinking that too. Like Tony is Nick Fury in the Ultimate Comics now for Spider-Man. I really liked it, and the Avengers is kind of. Have you thought about this? The Avengers as an organization has taken the place of S.H.I.E.L.D. now.
Yes, it has. You're right.
And I kind of like that better. Like, I'm not anti-S.H.I.E.L.D. or anything, and I mean, they still kind of exist in the TV world, but we just kind of conveniently pretend like that's not a thing in the movies.
They just fight Ghost Rider now. That's what they do.
Yeah, you just hang out with Ghost Rider. And I mean, I'm not trying to be disparaging toward the early things we did with S.H.I.E.L.D. necessarily, or with Nick Fury. Don't get me wrong, I want Nick Fury to come back in some capacity, and I kind of like S.H.I.E.L.D. to at some point come back and be underground S.H.I.E.L.D. again, as opposed to what it was at the beginning. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's just cool to see something different.
Exactly.
I think
that's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. I was very pleasantly surprised. Not that I expected it to be unfunny or anything, but I was pleasantly surprised that, we talked about this as well, how well the humor in the trailer played.
Yeah.
I thought that all of the quips were very well done. I was grinning from ear to ear at the end of the bank robbery fight, where he just looks at it, he goes, "That was awesome," and then it cuts to the Sony and Marvel logos. I was like, that is so like early Spider-Man stuff. It's so cool.
I was really impressed with them for putting that scene at the beginning. It immediately catches my attention, partly because, again, acknowledging Avengers World first. Really interesting that, and one of the first things you see is an Iron Man mask. That's pretty cool. We're acknowledging that Spider-Man is not the big popular powerhouse with movies that he was in the early 2000s, and we're getting back to that through Iron Man. I mean, like we're acknowledging how weird the history of all of this is, right? Like,
it is very weird.
When I was growing up, Iron Man was like a second string character, basically. And now we've really turned that around.
That in my mind, like,
in my mind,
a character that I'm like, I gotta go buy Iron Man comics every month,
Well, yeah, and the thing is, it's not Iron Man as much as it's Robert Downey. You know what I mean? Because you will never have. Some of this is just age and A-list actors, commanding money and stuff, but the guy who plays Iron Man commands millions of dollars for every movie he's in. No one who plays Spider-Man will ever have that as they're playing Spider-Man.
That's true. And I think it was really cool of Marvel to go after. I mean, we've talked about Tom Holland's casting before to go after an unknown and stuff, but man, he is killing it in this trailer. He's great. I think all of the
energy is
cast
right
in the movie. They're all relatively unknown actors, and I think the chemistry between all of them is fantastic. I love the relationship it seems to have with Ned Leeds. I keep wanting to call him.
It's not his name. He's not Ned Leeds. He's not.
But yeah,
Tom Holland looks like he's got a lot of potential range, right?
Yes.
Like he's got the goofball side, but there's also and Civil War. He had this in Civil War. I mean, it helped. I think I would still be excited about this movie if I saw this and Civil War hadn't happened and it was the exact same trailer. But, like, I got to live with this character for a couple of minutes, and so I've already got a sense of his affect. Tom Holland is able to play some pathos with this character, too. You know, there is the right kind of broodiness underneath that. Peter Parker always had that, and the comedy is a defense mechanism. And it seems like he's playing that exactly.
Peter Parker says at the beginning of the first Raimi movie, it's a defense mechanism.
Does he say that? I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, the spider thing. Yeah, right. And then Harry Osborn like repeats it to try to impress Mary Jane.
Yeah, and she's like,
cool, great, awesome. I like that weird head bob thing she does in that movie. Mm-hmm, sure. There's a poster in the and I'm not gonna read into this. I just thought it was cool. It was there. I don't know if this is on purpose, but you've got a bunch of people in Avengers masks. I know I keep talking about the scene, and you have Peter Parker as Spider-Man in the situation that he's going to be in, trying to live these two lives, where every time he's Peter Parker, you're imagining that second half of his face with the Spider-Man face, right?
Yeah.
There's a poster in the background that says something about helping people with identity theft.
Oh, interesting. I didn't notice that.
That was pretty great.
Yeah, that is awesome. This trailer felt to me, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said this, and I didn't really think about it this way, but you said this movie, at least what they cut this trailer, of it so far, it looks like Marvel's saying, you haven't really seen what Spider-Man is on screen before, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very excited about that, because I've always said that, like, we haven't
feels
gotten
so
the Spider-Man
fresh.
movie I would like to see yet. Yeah, exactly.
It feels so fresh. There's a lot of representation where, like, we're getting there and we're on our way. It's like Wolverine.
Yeah, you're right. It's like the new Logan movie. Like, that's what you want to see Wolverine, that's what everyone's been waiting to see with that character.
It sure looks like it. It sure looks like they finally nailed that character, maybe.
Yeah.
They had to turn him into an old man, and they had to base it partly on a Mark Millar book, but with Peter Parker, it feels so authentically Spider-Man. And
like I feel like this movie could end with like Peter Parker looking at the sunset and it changes into like the Spider-Man mask on the horizon, like the end of the Ditko comics. Like that would totally fit in this kind of the tone and style of this movie, which is awesome.
I heard so many people when they got the license roll their eyes, say, "I don't want another reboot. I'm so tired of Spider-Man." The main goal with this trailer, and I imagine Kevin Feige and other people in a room having this with like the Sony execs having this conversation, that maybe they said the main goal of this trailer is to get people to stop saying how tired they are of Spider-Man, to reboot their not their memories, but just their mindset about Spider-Man, and that's where that feeling that I had kind of came from watching that trailer and saying it's like Spider-Man has never been on the big screen before.
Agreed, and I think a lot of that feeling comes from the fact that this doesn't really look like the typical big budget action superhero movie. It looks like the scale is really tapered down. It doesn't look like the stakes are citywide destruction. You know what I mean? Like the Vulture is going around doing stuff. He's got this gun. He blows a ship apart. I'm sure that's going to be a cool action set piece. But it doesn't seem like the Vulture is trying to take over the entire city. They're not going to drop like an entire radio tower over the city like they did in Amazing 1. It's not going to be like the Vulture trying to turn everyone into Vulture people. It's not going to be like that at all. It looks like just this personal struggle between Peter and this guy, and then the tension that makes in his personal life. Like that's really awesome, and I think that's why it feels so fresh, because it's what everyone knows Spider-Man as. Like when you watch even the '90s series, like Spider-Man's not saving the world in those movies. Not even necessarily the city. He's like fighting the corruption of the Kingpin and things like that.
He can't, in a movie where one of the big selling lines, it seems like, is Tony Stark saying, "We've got people to do this."
Yeah, exactly.
We don't need you. Knock it off. And you're right. It has to be personal in some way. And inevitably will probably lead to a kidnapping plot. I do not see this movie not having a kidnapping plot, especially because Liz Allen. There's a shot of her with tears streaming down her face while I think while the dialogue behind it is Michael Keaton saying, "I will kill everyone you love." Pretty sure he's got her and maybe other people that Spider-Man cares about, like, in a place somewhere as hostages. Like, you probably can't get away from that, but it's gotta be a personal thing.
I know we've sort of done this before, but since Aunt May's a little bit younger, I wouldn't be surprised if... I mean, this would be really cool. I don't know that there's any indication in the trailer that they're doing this, but it would be cool if they kind of homaged the weird period of the comics where Doc Ock dates Aunt May and have the Vulture and Aunt May be like old flames or something, and he kidnaps her instead.
I would love that because that would be so... Well, and maybe that was a red herring. And have her, because she's just got tears down her face. There's all kinds of reasons that could happen. That could happen because of a love triangle. You don't know. You just throw that in there somewhere. Exactly. I mean, keep in mind the movie is called Homecoming, and I told you, and nobody is surprised by this, but I told you this movie will be set at Homecoming, and it is.
Yes,
there's a poster in the background. It's during. There will be a football game.
Hanging up the banner in the trailer that says Homecoming. Yeah,
I'm sure there will be a football game. Hopefully, there's not like there's not like a quarterback running while everybody else falls in a hole that's being created and he doesn't notice it. You know, hopefully we don't do that again. What a lovely boys! But I'm not even. Okay, I'm making fun of that scene a little bit, but I just mean I don't want to. We don't need to call back to Rises with that. We can have a football game without people being attacked at the football game, is the point I'm making. But anyway, so like there would be other reasons for a person to be crying, potentially. Right, exactly. So maybe that is a red herring. But you're talking about stakes. I'm of two minds about it because it can't be global and it can't be the whole city is at stake or whatever. At the same time, we know there are multiple villains in this movie, so it's going to be bigger than, like, Ant-Man.
Yeah, literally and figuratively.
But you also don't know how much of it is Spider-Man fighting villains that are unrelated to the main plot, because that's a thing that you and I and other fans have been asking for in a Spider-Man movie forever, and we sort of half got it with Rhino before he was Rhino in Amazing Spider-Man 2, but then at the end he becomes Rhino. But we haven't had it with a costume villain yet. We haven't had yet the Spider-Man's just taken down a quick, pretty easy costume villain in his off time.
Right.
And so
it's gonna be.
You don't know that's not Shocker. Like, that could be what Shocker is. It probably isn't, but it could be.
It's going to be very interesting to see what that gun is, too. At first, I was thinking, maybe that's a gun made out of one of the Infinity Gems, and then I was like, that'd be kind of... I wouldn't want stakes that high in a Spider-Man movie, but we've already got the Purple Stone that was in Guardians, so it's like, okay, good. So it's probably just some sort of thing the Tinkerer makes, and it's a very potent weapon, but it's not like... The Vulture's just going to use it to, like, rob banks and stuff, I think, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's as high as his ambitions go.
No, that's great, and I hadn't thought of that as the idea the Vulture is a regular guy. I thought it was just maybe like your typical... Because I thought maybe he would be the scientist that made it. I forgot about the Tinkerer, so it probably isn't that. Because at first I was thinking, well, he's probably just like your average, like, disheveled, eccentric scientist guy, just because he looks like he's not real well put together doesn't make him a normal person. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Like if they play him at all like the Vulture in the comics, his ambitions are nothing. And I really like the idea of him. Like, I hope they do this in this movie, of him acting like flying with a pair of wings is like the most powerful thing. Because he does that in the comics. We've been reviewing these, and that is hilarious. And with Iron Man in the film, he created Ultron.
Well, that's the funny thing about Tony Stark. When he talks about the Vulture, he's so dismissive of him. He's like, "Don't worry about the flying monster guy."
That's true. He's like, we deal with this kind of crap every week. Yeah. We just don't have the budget to put it on television and show it to anyone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I love Michael Keaton as the Vulture. I love the way the costume looks. It's what I would have expected.
You
like,
pointed out to me he's got the fuzzy thing!
Which is so cool.
Oh, I can't believe he's got that!
Fuzzy Vulture collar.
That is awesome. That is immediately the coolest costume we've had in a Spider-Man movie.
Oh, yeah.
Hands down. And that initial concept art, it's exactly that concept art. They didn't do anything. Yeah. It's exactly that guy. Well, they might have added the fluffy frilly thing around the coat. Why does he have that if it's not cold outside? Maybe it's just cold flying. I don't know. But like, because it's armored enough, it kind of doesn't make sense now. But I love that it's there.
Yeah, I love it too. I mean, maybe the Michael Keaton will be really eccentrically obsessed with vultures or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Because he's got like vulture feet too, which is cool. He's got like talons on his feet.
That suit is scary looking.
Well, that's Tom Holland recently said in an interview that Michael Keaton in the movie is actually really scary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they play him. I'm kind of hoping. I mean, it's the Vulture, so I'm not like expecting the Joker from The Dark Knight out of this. But I'm hoping that in this movie we get something a little bit closer to Marvel's take on Loki, where it's a villain you can empathize with, and he's interesting, and he's not kind of like throwaway like some of the other Marvel villains we've had. With Spider-Man, I wouldn't necessarily mind that, because a lot of the Spider-Man villains, like we talked about before, when they're first introduced, they kind of like that. They're just kind of foils for Peter Parker to create drama in both sides of his life, and the interesting parts of the story are the drama that is created by the conflict of the villain being there in Peter's life, rather than the villain himself being like a well-rounded and interesting three-dimensional character.
I think this movie is liable to be about how this onslaught of superheroes and aliens and magic, etc., has changed normal people's lives, which means...
Which would be great, yeah.
Which means, if that's what they're doing, that the Vulture doesn't have to be exactly a sympathetic character, because just giving him those wings with whatever his ambitions are could drive him over the edge and make him insane. And I mean, I'm not saying that's fascinating or anything. I'm just saying that like if the idea is it's about like how these people would have gone a different direction if we hadn't handed them keys to death weapons.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Maybe he would. What I'm saying is, maybe he's a somewhat unhinged or almost unhinged guy that gets his hands on a thing like that and gives him the means to do the crazy crap he never could have done had you never handed him a loaded weapon.
Oh, you just mentioned aliens in that weapon. How cool would it be if they called back to that weird first appearance of the Tinkerer where he like has alien tech and stuff and he's like a crazy alien? Like I'm sure he's not actually an alien, but how cool would it be if he gets that technology from aliens? That would be really cool.
Yeah, but I hope it's not Chitauri again.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten everything from the Chitauri. We did it in Luke Cage, which was cool in Luke Cage, but I'm just saying, like we keep doing
Luke Cage.
It's Luke Cage, but we keep doing Chitauri stuff. You know, and everything. Oh well, we melted down this indestructible metal, and we made these things. And
well, maybe.
Although they did leave a lot of ships behind, like there's a lot of alien metal to do things with.
And they could even connect it to like the Kree possibly, and make it sort of like a backdoor reference to Captain Marvel, because I think that's the next new property they're introducing. So maybe it could be Kree technology or something.
Yeah,
I know the Kree were in Guardians as well, but she's connected to all that stuff too.
Well, I was going to say that would be our first direct connection to Guardians.
Yeah, which that'd be pretty cool.
I mean, from one movie to another, Guardians has a couple things that obviously are calling back to the other movies, but nothing else seems to know that the Guardians are even a thing yet.
So what we'll do here is we'll introduce the Kree technology to Spider-Man's world, and then eventually we'll get Venom Space Knight. That's what's going to happen, right?
Yes! That was the thing I wanted to ask you. What are the odds that there's any Venom seeding in this? I think they're high. I think something will set up something Venom in this movie.
I mean, that'd be cool. Flash is in this movie. He's not shown in the trailer, but he is in the movie, so it would be really cool if he's set up to eventually, become the first Venom. I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that, especially to get away from what Sony did with it in the first place with Eddie Brock and stuff.
That's true, but the symbiote has to be bonded to somebody scary before it goes to Flash. I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
He can't be an altruistic superhero in the first place. It has to augment Flash's temper, and it does that because Venom was a scary thing.
Well, yeah, and they could go with a completely different direction in the comics, because obviously Flash is at a completely different place in his life than he is when he's like the veteran with the amputated legs.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you'd want to start with Flash. I think he has to have a character arc before you go there.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying it has to be just like the comics. I'm just saying that people would find it really lame if Venom was never a bad guy. I really think that.
They could still make him a bad guy, and Flash would just be like the bad Venom. You know what I mean? That's what I was going to say.
That's interesting. And then maybe he could become the good Venom later. Like maybe you play out his entire character arc with the Venom symbiote.
Yeah, exactly. That's they could do something like that, which would be kind of cool. Because I really hope they do see the Venom stuff, because I know that if they eventually get to Black Suit and do it again, Marvel will do the real black costume with the big white web, the white spider on the chest. They'll do it, and that's my favorite Spider-Man costume.
Me too.
By far. So I would absolutely love to see that
now, a lot of people think, I guess when I say Venom seeding, I mean characters, not so much the symbiote, because a lot of people are expecting, and I think, excuse me, I don't think this is a crazy leap. A lot of people are expecting Spider-Man to get that costume, to get the symbiote in Infinity War, and that Infinity War will also be Secret Wars, and that would be awesome. That is not a leap. I could totally see that.
I really hope they do that. That'd be amazing. Yeah,
it's a good idea, and it lets them do that suit early.
Mm-hmm.
And like we don't need to wait too long on that.
And I think that's one of the things that would get people really excited about Spider-Man again as well. Like Marvel saying, "We're going to do the black suit right this time," you know?
Yeah, because it was so lame last time.
Exactly, and that's
and anybody that knew that suit was like, "Are you serious? You just made it a black and white?" Okay, all right.
And outside, comic book reading circles, what people know as iconic Spider-Man things, like the black suit is one of them. Everyone knows, like, oh, Spider-Man, he puts on the black suit, he turns evil, and then Venom is, like, probably the most well-known Spider-Man villain. So if you start seeing that stuff, that'll get people to come out and see it, definitely. Yeah. Oh, I really hope they do that. That'd be so cool.
I mean, there's got to be... They've got to go out in space. There's got to be a lot of cosmic space stuff in Infinity War, especially because, the Guardians are in that movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, that would be so cool. I'd love that.
Anything else we didn't talk about?
I'm trying to think. I think we covered most of the stuff. I mean, it's only 2 minutes, and I think we talked about pretty much everything. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people, surprisingly enough, because, I mean, I'm extremely biased, because I'm like, a gigantic Spider-Man fan. I get excited about really anything Spider-Man if it looks, decent.
If it looks halfway decent.
Yeah, right? I'm seeing a lot of people say, like, on Facebook and stuff, say that it looks like a bland movie, that they're sick of Spider-Man.
Really? Still?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people saying that this movie looks bland and stuff. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that it looks a little bit more smaller scale, that people aren't, like, their expectations are, Spider-Man is a big, blockbuster action movie, and they're expecting to see that in the trailer, and they can get that. I don't know what it is for people. But, like, this is what I would have expected a Spider-Man movie to be the first time they made it, if they were doing a direct adaptation of the comics really faithfully, Yeah. So for me, it's really refreshing, because it's kind of what I always wanted. But I don't know.
I mean, I do think that there's potential for it to be tonally uneven. I mean, that could happen.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a tough tightrope to walk. That's the main concern I would have if I had any concerns, is that they won't be able to put the jokiness and the pathos together. But I didn't see a cluster.
I think this movie is sort of like Doctor Strange, in that they can't really afford to screw this one up. So I think they're going to spend a lot. They've probably spent a lot of time and care with this, and at least I hope. I think.
It feels confident. It feels like they're bold, and they're taking the right kinds of risks. I think
so too. I can't really see this being a bad movie, really. I mean,
it might not be for everybody.
Are, like, bad, but yeah. True.
I mean, the thing to keep in mind is that each of these movies is kind of in a, or at least a lot of them are kind of in different sorts of genres. I always say this, but Marvel is not just a universe; it's a studio. They make different kinds of films that all fall within the superhero umbrella. So, if you don't like high school comedies, it might not be for you, even if it does that well. I saw a comment from somebody today in the comments for one of our videos saying that they saw it and thought that the action stuff looked fun, but that the high school bits looked like Disney TV, like crappy sitcom, and I wasn't getting that from it.
No, me either. All of the jokes in the high school stuff landed for me personally. Like,
and I'm not calling that guy out at all. I'm just saying that like for some people this just might not be their genre, and that might not appeal to them.
That's true, because they did pitch this movie as a John Hughes Breakfast Club style movie that happens to be about a superhero character.
That's a risk.
It is.
That's not universally. That's not going to universally grab everybody.
Agreed.
Accessible.
But agreed. Yeah, and one of the things we've always talked about Marvel is that not all of their movies are necessarily like wonderful, like in the sense that like they're really great like movies that have a really great storytelling. Like Thor: The Dark World is not one of my favorite movies. I wouldn't think to like, oh, I'm gonna watch Thor: The Dark World today because I enjoyed that movie so much. You know what I mean? Like, but they always try.
If you've ever done that, I want to know. Anybody watching this that is ever and I'm not making fun of people that like that movie. I'm curious because I have not talked to very many people at all that just loved that movie to the point where you would sit down and go, I feel like watching this today. Like, yeah, exactly. Anybody, leave a comment. I want to know.
I'd be the guy to do that, you know?
Yeah,
I love
because you're such a big. Yeah, there's not a lot of Simonson in that one, but in particular though.
That's true. I'm hoping that Ragnarok does more of that stuff because they're adapting other Simonson story. But anyway, I always appreciate that Marvel at least tries to take these kind of risks.
Yeah.
Like, doing a John Hughes style movie about a superhero has never been done before. So I'm really looking forward to see how they handle it. It's going to be really cool.
I'm excited. This is leapt up now to one of my most anticipated movies next year, right alongside Logan. Like they're fighting right now for my most anticipated movie next year, and then the big runner-up for me after that is War for the Planet of the Apes.
It looks so good,
and I love that title. I love that it's for and not of. That's
yeah.
Did you see the trailer?
I did. It's amazing.
And the Planet of the Apes name drop, which should be too goofy, but it's not. No, I love that. It's gonna. If we're not
super serious,
if we're not careful, it's gonna be a Planet of Apes. And I was like, I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, this is totally unrelated to Spider-Man, but I loved the scene in the.
We should make a video about that.
Yeah, I know, right? But that trailer I loved when they're walking on the beach that looks like it's from the original movie on the horses. I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. But yeah, Spider-Man, I want to know, people in the comments, like, if you think it looked bland. I'd really like to know what, like, because I've seen a lot of people not dig it, and I'd really like to know why. Like, if you don't think that it looks like it's for you, I'd like to just to pick people's brains. I want to see what's on people's minds, like what they think about it. Because I want to understand other people's perspectives on it, because obviously I'm the most biased person in the world to ask about this. Like, Spider-Man is my thing. So I just want to see what it doesn't do for other people. So definitely let us know. I'm going to be very interested to read people's thoughts about it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, because we're not sitting here intentionally pulling punches. It's not like it's not like, oh, it's a Marvel thing, so we have to praise it up, exactly. Up and down, and obviously it's going to be perfect. And anybody who doesn't immediately like it, they're idiots. No, like, it's just my and Dan's reaction immediately was, holy crap, this is exciting, but like other perspectives of course are valid, and we always like to have those.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I saw a lot of people say that they're still not on board with the Tony Stark Peter mentor relationship thing. And that's not something that we were on board with initially, so I totally understand.
They've already won me over on that, but maybe I'm easy.
Exactly, right. So I'd really like to know what people think about it. And man, I just can't wait for this thing to come out. It's definitely my most anticipated, of course, because the Spider-Man movie looks really good. But
I'm by default.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really looking forward to that. and probably Logan is probably second, but man, Ragnarok has Doctor Strange, Thor, and Hulk in it, and they're going to hell. And Kate Blanchett is playing Hela, and it's adapting the Simonson story. Carl Urban's playing the Executioner. I can't wait for that. Yeah, that's gonna be so cool.
Yeah, the Hela thing is exciting, but Doctor Strange is in it?
That's what that's what the post-credits sequence with Thor is supposed to be. He's going to be helping them. I don't know how much he's going to be in the movie, but apparently that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Have you, looked into this?
That's what Marvel's saying. He's going to be involved with the plot to some capacity. I don't know if he's going to be journeying with them, but he's going to be involved somehow.
Off screen they would just be like, it was sure nice of Doctor Strange to do his portal opening thingy so that we can walk through it and go in there.
He shows up for one scene, helps him and leaves, but I'm so excited.
But I didn't think it was a given that he would be in the movie at all. I figured that they would just be a throwaway line. So I didn't expect to see Cumberbatch at all.
Yeah, and they released photos of what the Hulk's going to look like in that movie, and he's got the full Planet Hulk Gladiator armor on.
I expected that. Awesome. That's cool. I'll have to look that up.
I can't wait.
That's cool. Eric and I were not even talking about Spider-Man now. Eric and I were having a conversation about that the other day, and we are a little miffed. Maybe somehow or rather this will not happen, but it looks like once again Sif and the Warriors 3 probably get shafted.
Oh yeah, of course.
I don't see them getting anything to do, and we were talking about how I don't need Thor to have a romantic relationship with somebody else that's not Sif. Do that finally.
Yeah, and what is very exciting about that movie to me too, adding the Hulk to it and making it literally an entire movie on Asgard. That's what Dark World was supposed to be. We still had to go there and deal with, Natalie Portman and her amazing friends who I'm not interested in any of them.
Sorry, Darcy, but you're not going to be a main staple of the Marvel Universe. Exactly. It's not going to happen.
So the fact that those people are gone is very exciting to me, and we're just going to... this has the potential to be the definitive Thor movie. But then again, I said that about Dark World, too, so what do I know? Who knows?
That had the possibility. It just didn't live up to the possibility.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
you didn't predict that it necessarily would be, but I hope. But I hope this one. I mean, it should. There's no excuse for the movie where Thor goes to hell to not be the one that finally pulls it out of the rut of that of if you want to call it a franchise, of that franchise.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's crazy.
Those have been the weakest.
Yeah. No. Yeah, they have been. I mean, I like the first Thor movie for what it is. I just mainly because of how good the performances are and how great Loki is, because they did Loki perfectly, and he's one of my favorite Marvel villains. But yeah, they of all of the mainstay Avengers franchises, you can't say that anyone's weaker except for maybe Hulk, but he's only had one movie, so it's not really a franchise.
And I'm not. And I mean, it's up to you whether or not Thor or Ant-Man is a better movie. But Ant-Man has had one film so far, also.
That's true. Yeah,
so I mean, there's that. But at least of the ones that have had multiple movies already, Thor feels like the weak one to me.
I agree with you. Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see because Beta Ray Bill shows up in. In the comic book, it's Silver Surfer who shows up, and he's in the gladiatorial arena with Hulk. But they made it Beta Ray Bill in the animated movie because they didn't have the screen rights to Silver Surfer. So I bet Thor is going to probably serve that role when Hulk's in the arena, helping him out and stuff. So it'll be pretty cool.
I want Beta Ray Bill so bad, though.
Me too.
Just because I want to see how in the world they would do it. Well, I mean, I guess we've got weird creatures in Guardians, so obviously it would be a CG thing, but I want to see it.
I want a giant yellow horseman in a Thor costume. That would be so awesome.
That's all we're asking. We're not asking too much, okay? Giant yellow horseman. That's all we need. Anyway. Anything else about Spider-Man? Are we good?
I think I'm good. Yeah. No, I'm just really excited.
Well, everybody, thanks as always for watching. Sure appreciate it. I am not surprised that this took a whole hour to talk about. And we will see you again with more videos shortly here on Geekvolution. And if there is another major trailer that gives us more stuff, we may come back and talk about it. I don't promise videos on every trailer now, because sometimes they get redundant. We didn't do one on the new Guardians trailer because I just didn't think there was enough there to talk about.
I agree.
Something else I meant to mention is when I was thinking other things they might put in trailers. Now, first of all, you don't need another one. This is one of those trailers where just give us this. There's no reason to show us anything else, I don't think. But
Agreed.
Was surprised not to see Aunt May anywhere in this trailer.
She did show up for one brief flash.
I didn't see it.
One shot of her, yes.
Okay.
There was.
All right. But I was surprised not to have, like, a line or something. But then again, they sold Amazing Spider-Man 2 really hard on her. So that could be part of that, strategy of, like, well, we'll sell it on totally different things than we did the last franchise.
Yeah, they did show her. She shows up right after Liz Allen. They show Liz Allen with the tears streaming down her face, and he says, "I'm going to kill everyone you love." So it goes Liz and then Aunt May. It's very brief. Okay. But yeah, I was kind of surprised too, given how she kind of was like, her and Tony had like a rapport, like in that movie. I was surprised there wasn't any scenes between them, but we'll see. It'll be interesting.
At the end of that movie, not only does Liz Allen not choose to be with Peter Parker, but she also won't date Flash Thompson because Flash Thompson likes Spider-Man. And she, like, finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. She's like, no, we can't date. And then, like, no one gets Liz Allen at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I'm calling it right now.
In this movie, too. Like, maybe Ned Leeds and Peter will have a falling out because Peter steals his girl eventually. Be interesting to see.
I just don't think I can bring myself to call him Ned Leeds. Everybody, thanks so much for watching. Sure appreciate it, and we'll see you again shortly with more stuff here on Geekvolution. I am kicking my camera. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Dan.
Thanks for watching.